To get the Saboteur Tower, you actually need to beat Polluted Wastelands 2 after the updates. You cannot get the Saboteur Tower before this update, and you unlock it, I believe, so it looks like you'll have to buy the tower. But damn, for the first time ever, I think Special Game Modes is the most popular game mode ever. 188 people experimented with Sandbox mode. Those are probably the people who are playing around with the Saboteur Tower in there, so that's pretty cool. Okay, and I think that is GG when it comes to the nuclear monster. And after this, I should have the ability to actually buy the Saboteur Tower. So yes, one of the first triumphs after the Saboteur Tower has been added to Tower Defense Simulator. And hopefully the developers have coded it properly so that I get the Saboteur Tower. Alright, so let's see this. Very cool. Okay, 150 gems. And Sabotage the Plant Award. That's cool. So apparently there's a new badge as well. It's called Sabotage the Plant. From the looks of things, we're the first 1,000 people to beat the Sabotage the Plants, which is cool. And you also get the defeated nuclear monster. Is that still available? I'm not sure. But yes, the Saboteur Tower actually costs 7,500 coins. Yeah, not the 4,000 coins that the Cowboy and the Warden costs. Now, apparently, before I made my review, the Saboteur Tower sounds, they actually broke, but now they're working again because of good old Mentin. Watch my previous videos to see why he managed to fix them. So, let us purchase this Saboteur Tower, and okay, that's a new animation to buying a new tower. That's very cool, and it only has one skin, the default skin, which I had expected. Right then, so the Saboteur Tower costs $575 to place down, so it can be started on in most game modes. So, for example, in casual, you start off with 600 without any skills, and the Saboteur Tower can be placed down. And the way that it shoots out is very much like the Shotgunner Tower. With each shot, multiple bullets come out of its spread gun. And because of the spread of the Saboteur Tower, the target is not necessarily going to be hit by all of the shots. So, as you can see, most of the time, the Saboteur Tower can hit all of these enemies. So that's because these are relatively slow enemies. If it was something like, I don't know, the lightning, or thinking about things, maybe the arrow enemy from the toilet mode, then maybe the Saboteur Tower won't be able to hit it if it's far along its range. So if it's closer to the Saboteur Tower, it's more likely to hit it. Although the spread of the Saboteur Tower doesn't seem to be that bad. And the amount of enemies that the Saboteur Tower can hit with one shot does vary between levels. Even though it looks like it does pierce through the enemy, that's not necessarily the case. And as you can see here, sometimes the spread doesn't always hit that enemy. Sometimes it hits the normal next to it because of the spread. Now, there is a placement limit of 8 for the Saboteur Tower. In addition to this, the Saboteur Tower applies poison damage to each enemy that it hits, as you can see here. Now, this poison damage cannot reduce the defense of enemies, whereas the poison damage from the Toxic Gunner can. So if you are in doubt on whether the Toxic Gunner is better than the Saboteur Tower in terms of poison, then in terms of support poison, then the Saboteur Tower isn't as good as the Toxic Gunner in reducing defense. In addition to this, the Saboteur Tower can slow down enemies. At max level, it's 15%, but at all other levels, it's only 10%. The poison time only lasts for 3 seconds though, at 0.9 tick, whereas the poison damage at level 0 is 1. Damage is 2 and its fire rate is 1.2. So its DPS at level 0 is 6.01, 4.9 normal DPS plus 1.11 poison DPS, and its cost efficiency is actually a very good 95.67, which is cost efficiency that you would normally associate with a melee tower. Now, the Saboteur Tower does have a short range, 11.5 or 13.22 with skills, but it can actually quite easily solo the first 13 waves of casual mode if you get the hidden detection as well at the back, high turrets. Now, at level 1, the Saboteur Tower gets hidden detection, and additionally, it upgrades the amount of enemies that it can hit from 1 to 2. Now, it should be noted that there is no damage drop-off when it comes to the Saboteur Tower, so it will always deal this amount of damage because of the Scattershot ability that the Saboteur Tower has. With this ability, damage dealt by the Saboteur scales with enemies' hits. So, for example, if it only hits one enemy, then the Saboteur Tower will effectively deal double damage. This is actually seen with the burst count that comes from the Saboteur Tower, not the doubling of the damage that actually comes from it. So, as you can see here, the damage values are 2, but because it only hits one enemy, it means that there are twice the amount of shots that it hits. DPS remains the same, and the cost efficiency then jumps up to 187.19. But if it hits 2 enemies, then the cost efficiency does decrease by half. That is about the same as a level 0 Saboteur Tower. So in that regard, then yeah, if you want to hit as many enemies as you can, then the Saboteur Tower, place it on the straights or on the corners. And then after this, we get a brand new rig, which is the level 2 Saboteur upgrade. At this level, the Saboteur Tower gets lead detection, its fire rate decreases from 1.2 to 1, the range increases from 11.5 to 13.5, and the damage increases from 2 to 4. Interestingly, there's a change to the shotgun as well. Apparently, the base spread has increased from 3 to 3.5. I'm not sure how base spread actually works, because the spread has also changed from 2 to 1.5. So there's a decrease in spread, but an increase in the base spread. The only thing that I can think of is the spread at the source of the Saboteur Tower is really small, but towards the edge of the range of the Saboteur Tower, the base spread has increased. In addition to this, the poison damage has increased from 1 to 2, and the poison length has increased from 3 to 4. These changes mean that the DPS for the Saboteur Tower has increased to 13.93, 11.71 normal DPS, and 2.22 poison DPS, and the cost efficiency is 186.65, so very similar to level 1. And then from level 3, the Saboteur Tower actually gets a new ability called the Aggressive Toxins ability. So with this, the ability throws a toxic grenade to apply a neuralized debuff to enemies that amplifies damage taken and forces towers to target them. The ability cost is 500, neuralized duration is 5 seconds, the neuralized grenade radius is 3.5, and the damage taken bonus is 10. So that's very similar to boosting a tower's damage by 10, except it's for a specific enemy, and that could be very useful towards bosses, for example. Black market tech. Yeah, you probably got this from the hacker of sorts. I wonder. I think within the lore, I think the Saboteur Tower should be related to the hacker tower. And yeah, we're going to call this the green glow stick ability. If you know, you know. And you can select where this ability is thrown. So if we throw it at these hazmats here, and then all of these enemies that are highlighted here, they'll probably be dealt 10% more damage. Why is the duration 100 seconds? Hold on. Is it ever mentioned that it's 100 seconds? That's quite a long period of time. I guess it's quite OP, I guess. With this, it's actually 120 seconds cooldown, but it's only 100 seconds with the skills enabled. So I guess in this regard, skills is actually quite good. In addition to this, there's a 60-second cooldown when you place it down. So you can't, for example, place it down on the last wave and then immediately use it to weaken bosses, for example. And I wonder if, can you throw out the range? No, you can't throw out the range of the Saboteur Tower. So you has to be within range. Oh god, data store lock lost. No. My Saboteur Tower is still here. Don't worry about it. As I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. The range for the Saboteur Tower has also increased from 13.5 to 14.5. The fire rate has decreased from 1 to 0.9, and the damage has increased from 4 to 7. And I wonder, is the ability reduced? It may be reduced if you have skills enabled, so that's something to use, I guess. Poison damage has also increased from 2 to 4, and the poison length has increased from 5 seconds to 5.5, and the poison tick has decreased from 0.9 to 0.6. Now, I actually want to see the damage in action. The only problem is I don't think the Saboteur Tower's damage buff right now, 10%, is good enough to see it on an enemy right now, given the fact that it is quite weak. So I need an enemy that doesn't actually have defense. I don't think the Brute has defense. So if we use it on the Brute, then yeah, okay. So let's get the Saboteur Tower. It currently deals 7 damage, and if the Saboteur Tower were to use its green glow stick ability on this Brute, yeah, it actually does increase to 8, so this ability does work on bosses. Although that being said, the Brute isn't actually a boss, and it doesn't last for that long looking at it. That's what, a 5-second damage boost? Which is better than nothing, and given the fact that you have 8 Saboteur Towers, I guess it's something to use. But that does mean you have to have a lot of Saboteur Towers placed down. And its damage, while it is good at this level, it is 36.94 DPS, which is split into 30.27 normal DPS and 6.67 poison DPS. Cost efficiency is 209.8, and this is definitively not really a late game tower apart from to use its ability. The tower itself is a very good early game tower to place down, and it does evolve into a support tower later on. And then finally, at level 4, which costs $15,115, $22,865 in total. And with this upgrade, the fire rate decreases from 0.9 to 0.65. The range has increased from 14.5 to 16. The max hits has increased from 2 to 3. Bullet count from the Saboteur Tower has increased from 4 to 6. Because at the previous level, the bullet count has increased from 3 to 4. I forgot to mention that. Poison damage has increased from 4 to 7, poison length has increased from 5.5 to 7, and poison tick has decreased from 0.6 to 0.4. So enemies are going to be damaged by poison a lot more. As mentioned at the start of the video, the slowdown from the poison has increased from 10% to 15%. So the Saboteur Tower, not as good as the Toxic Gun in slowing down enemies. The base spread has increased from 3.5 to 4, but the spread has decreased from 1.5 to 1. Someone needs to explain to me what base spread and the spread is. The Scattershot has upgraded, so if it only hits one enemy, it will deal 3 times damage. If it hits 2 enemies, it will deal 1.5 times damage, and 3 enemies, it will deal 1 times the damage, which is the stated damage here, which will be, I believe, 7. And then finally, the duration for the Neuralize has increased from 5 seconds to 9 at this level. The radius has increased from 3.5 to 5, and the damage taken has increased from 10 to 15. So overall, the Saboteur Tower at level 4 will deal 69.35 DPS because its Scattershot is broken. Cost efficiency 329.7, which is pretty bad, but given the fact that at this level it's more of a support tower to use on bosses, I think it can be excused. Now, the only problem is, of course, it takes up 8 of your slots, which isn't ideal, I'll be honest. So let's see, the Saboteur Tower in action. Shoots at the Molten Warlord and now deals 9 damage to it. So yeah, 15% damage bonus does work, on bosses at least. And 9 seconds is a pretty long period of time. If you have 8 Saboteur Towers, it means that effectively you can have the bosses in Tower Defense Simulator take 15% damage for about 72 seconds. And again, you can't really spam this ability. Don't spam this ability. This is the first ability where in Tower Defense Simulator you want to think about it strategically. Well, I guess with the commander as well, because obviously the cooldown is 120 seconds, which is reduced to 99 or 100 seconds if you have skills enabled, or 105 seconds. Oh my god, that's quite a long period of time. This is probably the longest cooldown ability since at least, I think, the Mega update in 2019, if not probably longer. Probably is the longest cooldown ability ever in Tower Defense Simulator. But yeah, overall, the Saboteur Tower can be a tower that I think can be used within people's strategies. The only problem is it's very technical to be used and is probably on the same lengths as, say, the Commander Tower. Now, something that I can really easily see be used for the Saboteur Tower is an early game tower, very early on, obviously, and then it evolves into a late game tower with its ability, which I find to be pretty cool. Oh, and one last thing to note is that the ability from the Saboteur Tower, the green glow stick ability, can be boosted by the DJ booth. So that's cool. But yeah, it's an alright tower, I must say. And no, unfortunately, the Saboteur Tower does not use its knife that it gains at level 1, which is unfortunate. But yeah, those are all of the levels for the Saboteur Tower as well. Paradox in Games logo. So I have been informed that Scattershot actually does work by Tom. Very last minute addition to the review video. But apparently these changes aren't well described. As you can see here, Scattershot is meant to deal 105-ish damage to this brute, and it is dealing roughly around this shot. I've limited the Saboteur Tower to 10 fire rate so you can see it, but it does work. Here it states 3 times damage, which is technically true. The only problem is it's from the pellet. So imagine it's a 3 times pellet boost, not a 3 times damage boost.